There's a bombshell piece out in the New Yorker detailing how Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein is basically losing her mind. Now, this is a very sensitive topic because we're talking about somebody who is aging, somebody who is just not all there and is becoming incredibly forgetful. And this is according to people who are working close with her. So before I get into any of the details in this piece, let me first share with you the actual the headline, and I'm going to link to this below the video as well. I suggest if you want all the details to read through it. This is a great piece written here by Jane Mayer. Dianne Feinstein's missteps raise a painful age question among Senate Democrats. Now, before I get to any of the actual details in the piece, I want to just go over a couple of examples that we've seen just over the last few months. So first here, this was during a hearing with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, where Dianne Feinstein asks the same question twice, just 2 minutes apart.
On November 7, President Trump tweeted, and I quote, "I won this election by a lot," end quote. Obviously, that's not true. Do you believe that label goes far enough to prevent the tweet's harms when the tweet is still visible and not accurate? Well, let me give you a specific. On November 7, President Trump tweeted this: "I won this election by a lot." Does that label do enough to prevent the tweet's harms when the tweet is still visible and is not accurate?
So she asks the same question twice, even with the same inflection, appearing to have no idea that she just asked that same question a couple minutes earlier. And apparently this kind of thing is going on all the time behind the scenes as well. Shortly after this, she ended up stepping down as the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is after, of course, facing a lot of criticism for how she handled the Amy Coney Barrett hearings, and I'll get to more of that in a bit. But let me first give you some examples here from this piece on what Jane Mayer writes. So she says here, speaking on background and with respect for her accomplished career, they say her short-term memory has grown so poor that she often forgets she has been briefed on a topic, accusing her staff of failing to do so just after they have. They describe Feinstein as forgetting what she has said and getting upset when she can't keep up. One aide to another senator described what he called a kabuki meeting in which Feinstein's staff tried to steer her through a proposed piece of legislation that she protested was, quote, just words, which make no sense. Feinstein's staff has said that sometimes she seems herself and other times unreachable. The staff is in such a bad position, a former Senate aide who still has business in Congress said. They have to defend her and make her seem normal. Now, I'm going to get to more examples, but this is where Democratic leadership is supposed to step in and tell her to step down. She should not be holding any powerful positions within the Senate. She shouldn't be a senator. She should be stepping aside and have someone else take that seat over. You cannot allow seniority to get in the way of logic. If somebody is unable to do their job, they should be pushed out of the way. They should have to be forced to retire. And again, this isn't to sound ageist. This is somebody with a position of power. So if you are offended at the reality that Dianne Feinstein cannot do her job, I'm sorry, but she has to get out. You cannot have somebody with this kind of power continue to hold that power when clearly she is unable to function. Now, more examples here. The former Senate staffer who still works with Congress declared, quote, "It's been a disaster." As the ranking Democrat, Feinstein ordinarily would be expected to run the party strategy on issues of major national importance, including judicial nominations. Instead, the committee has been hamstrung and disorganized. Quote, "Other members were constantly trying to go around her because, as chair, she didn't want to do anything. And she also didn't want them doing anything," the former Senate staffer said. A current aide to a different Democratic senator observed sadly, quote, "She's an incredibly effective human being, but there's definitely been deterioration in the last year. She's in a very different mode now." According to several sources, Chuck Schumer, the Democratic minority leader, was so worried that Feinstein would mismanage Barrett's confirmation hearings that he installed a trusted former aide, Max Young, to, quote, "embed in the Judiciary Committee to make sure the hearings didn't go off the rails. He had done the same during Kavanaugh's confirmation as well." And if you can remember, during or after, at the end of Amy Coney Barrett's hearings, you had this that I covered. Lindsey Graham and Feinstein shake hands and hug after the hearings conclude. This was so crazy that this made headlines. The media kept asking Democrats why this happened. Why did she hug Lindsey Graham? It was so weird after the complete sham that those hearings were, that it clearly something was wrong there. And obviously now, as you're seeing people come out that work with her, that have either worked with her before or still work with her close behind the scenes, they're coming out to say that she's not well. And the fact that it's taken them having to go to the press to possibly have some kind of response from the Democratic Party shows you the complete failure within the party to be able to handle this sort of thing internally. Now, just a couple more quotes here. Overtures were also made to enlist the help of Feinstein's husband, Richard Blum. Feinstein, meanwhile, was surprised and upset by Schumer's message. He had wanted her to step aside on her own terms, with her dignity intact. But, quote, she wasn't really all that aware of the extent to which she'd been compromised, one well-informed Senate source told me. It was hurtful and distressing to have it pointed out. Compounding the problem, Feinstein seemed to forget about the conversation soon after they talked, so Schumer had to confront her again. Quote, it was like Groundhog Day, but with the pain fresh each time. Anyone who has tried to take the car keys away from an elderly relative knows how hard it can be, he said, adding that, in this case, it wasn't just about a car, it was about the U.S. Senate. So this is regarding getting Feinstein out of the position of power within the Judiciary Committee. But this, again, yes, it is a very sensitive topic. It's, I imagine, incredibly tough. I had a grandfather who had Alzheimer's. I was really young when he went through it, but it's tough to approach this conversation with somebody who you know is not well, and they are simply not aware of how unwell they are. And when you have somebody, again, with a position of power in the U.S. Senate, regardless of how uncomfortable it is, you have to deal with it. Not just in terms of getting her out of positions of power within the Senate, but getting her out of the Senate completely. Now, one more thing here from the article. Meanwhile, the Feinstein situation has triggered the latest round in a large generational fight in the Democratic Senate caucus. Unlike the Republican leadership in the Senate, which rotates committee chairmanships, the Democrats have stuck with the seniority system. Some frustrated younger members argue that this has undermined the Democrats' effectiveness by giving too much power to elderly and sometimes out-of-touch chairs, resulting in uncoordinated strategy and too little opportunity for members in their prime. Things begin to come into focus with how much of a failure Democratic leadership is when you begin to realize or understand that the Democratic Party runs on seniority, while the Republican Party does not. Allowing Republicans to be a little more agile with their strategy and how they approach these various situations. Meanwhile, you have Democratic leadership using the playbook out of the Reagan era to try and fight Republicans. And you wonder why, even when Biden wins the presidency, they're losing seats. These people are completely out of touch. And it's really not just about Feinstein. I mean, this story is about Feinstein and clearly her inability to deal with the job that she has, but also the issue of Democratic leadership in general and the approach they've taken and how completely out of touch the entire leadership is.